There's just a little bit of a delay. There we go. All right, so first, welcome to our BES family. It's always an exciting time of year for us to welcome new students in and new families. I know some of you are returners. You've had older siblings come through the school already, but there's a lot of new families as well. So it's exciting for us to welcome new families and new students, certainly. But let me do some introductions first, and it'll be a little bit difficult here if you don't have the spotlight function on. But on with us tonight from school, we have our 4 kindergarten teachers. So Rachel Theriault, Kristen Smith, Betsy Webster, and Karen Clifford. So as you know, we haven't assigned classrooms yet because we did the screening today. So we'll be working on that and trying to get that out to you early next week. We also have our school counselor, Annette Belanger. She'll be the school counselor for this kindergarten class. So she'll be with them right up through 4th grade until they head out to middle school. And we also have Elizabeth Meehan, who is a school psychologist with us. I think that's all I saw from our district. I can't see everybody, but if I missed somebody, I apologize. For those of you who don't know, I'm Ben Hill. I'm the principal at Belmont Elementary School. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a day in kindergarten tonight. And as we try to work our way through this pandemic, kindergarten's a little bit different. All schools a little bit different for all of us. And so we've been talking a lot about how to make sure that we continue to have a fun and engaging learning experience for students, and we're able to provide that even within the limitations or guidelines that we're following to promote safety, which is also always our number one concern, just a little bit heightened right now, for obvious reasons. So, as you can appreciate, the situation presents challenges for all of us in different ways. And so we're just committed to working through that as a team, and I hope you will be as well. There'll certainly be some frustrations along the way for all of us. I will tell you that everybody here at school wants kids here all the time. That's what makes the job fun. And so we're excited to be welcoming them back, at least partly. But obviously, we're in this hybrid situation to start. So what does a day in K look like? So I'm going to start off with a good night's sleep. So as you prepare your student to come to school, it's important that they get a good night's sleep and get a good healthy breakfast in the morning. And I will tell you that a good healthy breakfast is important. When you can almost tell when kids come in and they've had sugar for breakfast, as you can probably appreciate as parents. So those 2 things are super important. Getting your backpack ready. There are a few things that you want to make sure in the backpack, and teachers feel free to jump in or jump into the chat box if I miss anything. But lunchbox is number one. Certainly if they're bringing lunch to school, a lunchbox is important. In kindergarten, we have 2 snacks each day. So there's an opportunity for a healthy snack that we provide at school, and we provide that to everyone. We're fortunate enough to be a part of a program that provides that for us. So that's typically fresh fruits and vegetables each day that students can try, or if they know they like them, they can certainly have them. But you can also pack 2 snacks for your student just in case. And I think that's typical in kindergarten, that parents will pack 2 snacks, and then your student may not eat them all. They may take advantage of the healthy snack and come home with a snack left over. That's probably better than the alternative and not having a snack that they enjoy. So an AM snack and a PM snack. So lunchbox, 2 snacks, a change of clothes, I think, is something that the teachers are commonly asked for in kindergarten for various reasons. Sometimes accidents happen out on the playground. They get all muddy or something like that. And so it's important, if they get all wet, we don't want them sitting around all day in clothing that's dirty or wet and uncomfortable. And then, any supplies they're bringing to school, of course. This year will be unique. For the first time, we're going to be one-to-one in terms of computing. So every student's going to have a Chromebook that will be issued to them when they arrive at school. And so those Chromebooks will certainly come home with them on nights that they're going to be home and out of school for a couple of days, so that they can use those to do some learning at home. I saw Mrs. Clifford just posted a water bottle as well, so students are welcome to bring water bottles. We have fortunately water fountains where we can turn the mouthpiece off, so we won't be having people take water directly from the water fountains at this time, but there's a bottle refill sensor that they'll be able to use to refill water bottles throughout the day, and that will remain on. The other thing that's unique to the situation is, as you know, students are going to have to wear masks. So it's important that you have a mask with you when you leave in the morning. To get on a bus or to get into school, students will have to be wearing masks, as well as all staff, of course. So there are a couple ways to get to school. Some students may be getting on the bus. If that's the case, the bus pulls right up in the circle out front, and we'll have staff out there in the morning to help them get into school and make sure they know where they're going, especially on day one. For everybody in the first week, we have extra staff on hand to make sure that kids who need assistance finding their classroom, for instance, or maybe a little bit nervous about coming into the building, that we have support for all those students. So the bus is pretty simple, but they will have to wear a mask on the bus to get on the bus. And then the bus protocol is one student per seat right now, unless they're from the same household. So siblings can sit together if they're from the same household. And car riders, when you come in and enter our property, which I think a lot of you did today at least, maybe for the first time, but when you come into the property, you drive on and you take the immediate right, the first right. There's a sign there that says all traffic. So that goes down around the teacher's parking lot to the right, and then you're going to go straight through a gate and drive right by the playground. So you drive all the way out back for the car rider line. And so that's not necessarily intuitive, but because we have so many car riders and we can't have traffic backing up onto Route 140, that's the way we do things. So, and that gate typically will be open in the morning when you get here. And in the afternoon, we typically have that closed until about 15 minutes before dismissal, because we have students out on the playground and classes participating in instruction outside. So it opens typically about 15 minutes before dismissal in the afternoon. And if you do have walkers, I don't know that there are a lot of them, but we do pick up walkers right across the street, the crosswalk that goes across 140. So we have a staff member out there in the morning to walk them across and bring them over to the building. Our building opens at 8:35 to students in the morning. So 8:35 a.m. is when students can start coming in. That's when the car rider line will start to let students out of cars and into the building. That's when we'll start allowing students off the bus into the building as well. And that's when the crosswalk person will leave our building. So at 8:35, when that first bell rings, the crosswalk person will head across Route 140 and pick up walkers at around 8:40. And they usually head back by 8:45. Arrival. So 8:55 is the tardy bell. So students have to be in class by 8:55. In the situation we are currently under, students will go straight to their classroom to start. There are many students who eat breakfast. So if they get breakfast, they'll head back. They'll just keep their mask on and head back to the cafeteria for breakfast. Our cafeteria will be set up every day, all day right now. And that means that all the tables will be out with chairs that are numbered and spaced 6 feet apart. So kids will be assigned a number that they can go to that seat every day. And so they'll maintain social distance. Breakfast will be simple. There'll be tape on the floor so that they know how to space out, and there'll be staff in there to help them with that. And they'll go through line, and it's a grab and go type of thing right now. So they'll have a bag full of breakfast items, and the students will have a choice of milk or juice. So they'll make that choice, be handed whichever choice they make, and then proceed back to their seat. As students enter the classroom in the morning, the teachers and assistants will obviously be there to greet them. Every kindergarten classroom has a classroom assistant as well, so there are always 2 adults in the classroom to assist students. And then the morning right now, again, for safety reasons, we have assigned seats for students. So I don't know how familiar everyone is with this, but we're following state and CDC guidelines. Our nurse is on the phone every week with the Dr. Chan, who you probably see on TV, and the Department of Health and Human Services. So students will be seated 6 feet apart. We have some barriers. I don't know if that's the right word, but they're like a desk shield that students will have to protect them. So they're clear front, 2 clear sides, so that if they're seated at a 6-foot table, say, with another student, there'll be something in between students, just as a preventative measure. So they'll go straight to their tables, and teachers already have morning activities set up for them when they get in to keep them engaged and get them off to a good fun start. And the teachers will obviously walk them through storing materials and things like that. That's always a big question that comes up. What do I need to send my student with in terms of materials? So I think we've provided most of the materials. We don't really ask for crayons and pencils and anything like that. So we've actually purchased them for each student, and we have a container set up so that they'll have their own materials. They won't be sharing materials, again, for safety. So that's pretty simple. I also, while I'm thinking of it, I talked with a lot of teachers today about sending kids with a beach towel or something. So in the situation we're in, it's tough for kindergartners, obviously, to sit in the assigned seat all day. So beach towels would be good if you have it, or any kind of towel, if you have a towel to send in with them, because the teachers can use those to put as markers on the floors in the classrooms, so they don't have to be seated in a chair all the time. We'll have mask breaks and instruction that's occurring outside, and we'll have areas marked off for that, so they can take those beach towels outside as well, and that'll give them something to sit on outside and help our younger children with the physical distancing component, which can be difficult when you're just sitting on the lawn or something. So if they had that visible physical reminder, it would be helpful. Our day starts shortly after the 8:55 tardy bell rings with morning announcements. And then each class starts its day with a morning meeting. So that's typically involves some kind of greeting. And the teachers do a lot of different kinds of greetings, fun greetings, but that'll help the kids get to know the other kids and the teachers in class. And a lot of the things we do, like morning meeting, are part of our responsive classroom philosophy. So geared towards building classroom community and a team kind of camaraderie type of feel in the classroom. So each morning, every class in the building starts with a morning meeting. In addition to greeting, there'll be initially some fun icebreakers and things like that, but eventually those teachers will start to incorporate simple academic practice skills and stuff in a fun way into morning meeting as well. And then, let's see, lunch and snack counts happen in the morning as well. So lunch is simple at this point. There's only one option for lunch, or the alternative is sun butter and jelly. So typically we have a couple different options, at least for lunch, but because of the situation, there'll be one main meal for lunch, and then sun butter and jelly is an alternative. So anybody that gets lunch from school, there are two options. The teachers will send home envelopes, and you can always get extra envelopes from the office to send in money to be put on your child's account. And the other option is to pay online. So you'll receive information about setting up an account online and just adding money to your account that way as well, which is obviously easier. So lunch counts in the morning, and then snack counts also. So if anybody wants snack milk, you can purchase snack milk as well from the same account, and those get delivered right to the classroom for snack time. I do see the comments coming in, and I'm trying to get through my outline, and I know some of the teachers are answering the comments, but I will go back through the comment list at the end to make sure that those get answered. So academics start after that. So literacy is first in the morning for kindergarten. There are a few things that happen during that time. Typically it's a center-based type of arrangement. It'll be a little bit different in this situation, but Foundations is a program we use for things like letter identification and sounds, and then eventually that builds into handwriting, making words. The kids learn sight words. I think they're called trick words in Foundation, but things that don't follow normal spelling patterns. So they'll learn, there's a certain list of those words that they'll work on as well. And then typically by the end of the year, they get to the point where they're even building a small sentence and things like that, I think. So that's Foundations. Literacy, obviously, they're also reading and listening to teachers read. Writing, so writing occurs through Foundations. A lot of kindergarten is pencil grip initially to start, and then letter formation and things like that with writing. Word work is a big part of kindergarten, so learning letter sounds and starting to put them together to make words and things like that. So in this such situation, Foundations type of stuff occurs in whole group, and fortunately, in this, one good thing about this situation is there's going to be a small number of kids in the classroom, so they'll get a lot of attention from the teachers and assistants while we're in this hybrid model. There will be small group instruction as well. We have set up in the classroom, again, with the safety barriers so that teachers can meet with students. It'll be 1 or 2 students at a time probably, but they will have the ability to do that as well, to provide individual coaching and instruction based on individual student need. Math happens in the afternoon, a lot of hands-on activities with math and learning numbers and so forth. So that happens in the afternoon. Science and social studies typically are integrated in kindergarten, and that'll certainly be the case as long as we're in this hybrid model. As students are at school for 2 days, they'll integrate as best they can science and social studies. If we get back to, everyone being in school all the time, which I hope we do, there are some units that they cover in kindergarten. I know plants is one of them, forces in motion, and I think there's a weather unit as well. How'd I do? Is there any? I got them. Good. Nice. 2 snacks we talked about. So midday we get to recess. So each class goes to recess and then lunch. At this time, our playground equipment will be off limits to start. So kids will have recess out in the field. The idea is, and we do have a new associate principal, Janelle Johnson. She's got a bunch of socially distanced games that she's going to be talking about with the assistants, so the assistants can structure some fun activities for kids and allow them to take their masks off at recess, so they get that mask break and also get to run around a little bit. And then lunch right after the students, again, the cafeteria will be set up with numbered seats so that students will know that they just go to their number seat, which is not typical, but it's something we obviously have in place to make sure that we keep 6 feet of physical distance between students, especially since they'll be taking their masks off to have lunch. Lunch will be served. Hot lunch will be served. We're going to bring it right to their tables, so they won't have to even go through line or any of that stuff that's typically confusing at the beginning of the year. We're just going to bring it right to the table for them. So that should be pretty simple, and the assistants are always in there to help them with lunch. We did have discussion about packaging and things like that. So the best you can do to package things so that they're easy to open and things like that, and to put things into easy open containers, that's helpful. The assistants will have gloves, so they'll be able to help as needed. So they will certainly do that, but anything you can do to help out in that regard is great. After lunch, the kids will head back to typically have some quiet time. So that's just a little bit of a reset, relax type of thing that the teachers will lead them through initially, but some quiet time to just calm down and reset for the afternoon. Math we talked about in the afternoon. Specials. So specials happen in the afternoon. We call it our integrated arts schedule. So right now, typically we have an integrated arts rotation that includes physical education, music, art, library, and guidance. In the situation we're in, because of the high focus on social emotional support that we anticipate the students may be in need of, Mrs. Belanger will not be in that rotation. She's going to be out of that rotation, so she has the flexibility to meet with kids as needed. And she'll still provide her programming. She'll just schedule it with the teachers individually. And typically, students have a different special each day of the week. As we try to limit cohorts and reduce exposure, we're going to assign a specialist to one classroom in 4-week rotations. So what that means is if Mrs. Smith's class has music, let's say, they're going to have music for the first 4 weeks. Then they might have PE for 4 weeks after that, art for 4 weeks after that, and so forth. So if your student is, regardless of what cohort they're in, and I don't know if everybody understands cohorts yet, but cohorts are just small groups of students that we're trying to keep together and not cross cohorts, so that if we do have illness in the building, we can easily isolate it. So we have 3 cohorts, essentially. Cohort A, which primarily is students with last names starting with A through L. Cohort B, which is primarily students with last names starting with M through Z. And then cohort C, which is families or students that have chosen to be 100% remote and not be in the building at all. So cohort A, it will obviously be here. Well, I shouldn't say obviously. They'll be here on Tuesday and Wednesday. So they'll have, if they have music for their class, they'll have music during special Tuesday and Wednesday. Cohort B will be here Thursday and Friday, so they would have music Thursday and Friday. And cohort C will also have music So if in this case, their class is assigned to music, they will also have music, and they'll receive that virtually through their online learning platform, which is called Seesaw. Let's see, dismissal. So we're going to dismiss at 2:15. That's an hour earlier than normal. And that's a change due to the hybrid environment. So teachers will be able to meet with students in cohort C virtually at the end of the day from 2:15 to 3:15 roughly. And I'll get more information out about that at the beginning of next week. So dismissal, again, buses will be called one by one. So students will come from their classrooms, be dismissed from their classrooms as we call a bus. They'll come down the hallway and load the bus. Car riders, again, you're going to proceed around the building. I haven't figured out yet exactly where we're going to dismiss from, but all you'll have to do is proceed around the building just like you do in the morning. So you come in, stay to the right, go back behind the building beyond the playground, and Mrs. Belanger will probably be the one out there with her radio directing you and letting you know how to get through that. So so dismissal begins at 2:15. Again, that gate will probably open at about 2 o'clock. A couple other things here I should mention. The first is we will have an orientation for students on next Thursday, September 3rd. So in the meantime, you're going to get class lists, hopefully by the beginning of next week. And so you'll know who your child's kindergarten teacher is going to be, as well as what cohort they're in. So I gave you the general guidelines for cohorts. We may need to do a little bit of rebalancing just to make sure that the classes are equal and students get equal time with their teacher and so forth. But once you know who their teacher is and what cohort they're in, that will allow you to determine, when they'll be in school and when they'll be home. So orientation sessions on the 3rd, cohort A, and I'll send this out via email as well, but cohort A will be here at 12:30. The orientation will start at 12:30. It'll be about a half hour long. And parents, it's likely that the teachers will have paperwork to keep you busy while the students are in the building. So we'll have something set up outside for you to complete the paperwork that they need filled out. Cohort B will be 1:30 to 2. And then cohort C will have a virtual orientation from 2:30 to 3. So again, cohort A at 12:30, cohort B at 1:30, and cohort C at 2:30. I'm just going to check actually, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Belanger. She's going to talk to you a little bit about her role as a school counselor, and I will check the chat box while she does her thing.
Sounds like a plan. So I have been a school counselor at Belmont Elementary School since 2004. And the way that we have set it up is that I start with kiddos in kindergarten and then loop with them all the way to 4th grade. That way it provides consistency and familiarity. I get to know you guys really well, your kiddos really well. So I'm kind of their go-to person if they need any assistance of any kind. I also hope that I'm your go-to person if you need any assistance of any kind. So if you have any questions regarding social emotional well-being, if there's something that comes up in your family that is a change or transition and you're wondering how it might impact your kiddo, or just want to give me a heads up in case it does impact your kiddo at school, then just send me an email and let me know. I do actually counsel students at our school as a school counselor. So that means a one-time visit maybe to address something brief that might come up in your family or for that child at school. But it also sometimes means a little bit more long-term in a group situation maybe, or something that might take a little bit longer to address. Also, I see students in classroom guidance. So that means I come to the classroom and visit them every week as a special, like Mr. Hill had said. This year we're doing that a little bit differently, but I will still be seeing the kids and implementing a curriculum with them. It's called Second Step, and I'll send home more information about that as we get started with it. But it helps with academic learning and being a good student. Skills for learning is what we call it. But it also goes over empathy, problem solving. And we do a lot of social emotional work, like how to be a good friend, how to make friends, how to get along, how to solve problems. all those different kinds of things like that. And also how to regulate yourself. So calming strategies and things like that. And I usually start out with that a lot, and I'll send more information home in regards to that as well, because it's super important. And as far as the remote situation, so in the springtime, I did do social groups remotely, and I offered that to like everybody, anyone that wanted to sign up. That way students could still see their friends. So in this situation, because we have cohort C that will be all remote, I would, like to offer that again. So that way students can maybe see the kids that are all remote that maybe they aren't seeing at school, or, mix it up kind of thing. If there's certain kids that they would like to spend time with and play games. So what that looks like is a half an hour online. We do a meet just like this, and we play silly games together. And I have a variety of those that we're able to do over Google Meet. So that way at least kids can see friends and have fun, and we get to see each other without masks. How awesome is that, right? So yeah, if you ever have any questions or concerns, you're not sure if it's a concern, certainly shoot me an email, or if you're interested in a group or counseling or anything social, just, let me know, and I'd be happy to set something up. Was that enough time, Mr. Hill?
That's good. I'm almost through, but thank you. That's good. So because I'm recording the session, I'm going to go through some of the questions and the answers so that everybody hears them if they're not paying attention to the chat, or people that watch the recording later. So it was mentioned that an extra mask is helpful. So if you have an extra mask, you could send that with your student. That would be great. We will store masks. We'll have plastic like Ziploc bags for them to store them in. So when they're taking a mask break, for instance, they might transition out of the building for recess or to take a mask break outside. We'll have the Ziploc bags that they can put those in, a little bit sturdier than paper bags. So it'll be good for our kindergartners. One of the questions was about Chromebooks. So every student will get a Chromebook. If you have multiple siblings, every student will still get a Chromebook. So you may end up with multiple Chromebooks at home if you have multiple students in our district. Kindergarten mentioned that they do have carpet squares to sit on as well. So I mentioned bringing in a beach towel, which I still would love to see if you can pack one. But we will use the carpet squares as well. Somebody asked, is kindergarten peanut free? It's not at this time, but each year as we take in medical information, if the nurse finds that somebody has a peanut allergy, we will identify a classroom as a peanut-free classroom. We'll identify an area of the cafeteria as peanut-free and things like that if we need to. So you will get information about that if that is the case and it does happen. There was a question about meeting students outside on the first day. So part of the reason we do the orientation on the 3rd, which is next Thursday, is so that the kindergartners have an opportunity to get walked into the building on their first day without anybody else in the building. So none of the other students will be there at that time, and it makes it a little less intimidating and a little bit easier. Kindergarten's in a bright yellow pod. That's their color. The paint is bright yellow, so that's a cue you can use for your students. And then for the first week, we'll have extra staff at both the bus and car rider areas, so that as students come in, there'll be staff there that can walk them to the classroom for students who are showing anxiety or something like that. And there's always, we have the staff out in the hallway at their door greeting students every morning. So staff will be there to all through the hallway to help students as well. I will say, and this is parents right now, we can't have any volunteers and parents in the building. So it's only students and staff in the building. But on day one, I always say, and this is a tough thing for parents sometimes, that we don't want you to walk into the building with your student anyway. Students that are having anxiety on day one, whether it's crying or however they show their nerves, typically as soon as you're out of their sight, within 60 seconds or 2 minutes, they're calm. They're settled right in. But we do have parents that in the past have come in, and that leads to 10 minutes, 15 minutes or longer of crying because, parents, and it's a tough thing, I get it, but it's in the best interest of your child. So we will take care of them. We have counselors and psychologists that'll be available, and they focus on kindergarten in week 1. And certainly if there is a prolonged problem where your student continues to have an issue, you'll receive a call. But I can tell you that in my 7 years here, I haven't seen that happen maybe once. I don't know. I can't even think of a student who's had that situation. So I know that you'll be going through some tough stuff on day 1 too, especially if it's your first student you're sending off to kindergarten, but we'll take good care of them, I promise. Class sizes came up. So typically kindergarten class sizes are anywhere from 15 to 20. I think we're in the 16 to 18 range right now. So I think we have in the upper 60s, maybe total kindergartners. Typically we get new registrations up until day one. So I'm anticipating that it'll be in the mid to high teens. The classes obviously will be smaller at this time because when we're in this hybrid model, the reason is to keep class sizes small so we can maintain proper physical distance, which our standard is 6 feet here. And so that it'll be, roughly 45% of the kids on any given day in the building, 10% or so, 10 or 15% are out in cohort C at home all the time. And the other 85%, let's say, or 80% is split in half between cohort A and cohort B. So the number will be less than 10 on a daily basis in a class. Somebody asked about mask breaks indoors. So we won't be taking a lot of mask breaks indoors, particularly to start. And we've just kind of taken the position as a district, which I think is a good position to take, that we're going to be more conservative with our guidelines and just make sure things are as safe as they can be to start. And if things go well, obviously it's easier to ease those restrictions later for kids than it is to tighten them after you've kind of let things loose. So we'll be highly focused on safety to start. Kindergarten obviously will have less tolerance than a fourth grader might for masks and need more frequent mask breaks. So the teachers will build that in, and they'll also be encouraged when the weather's nice to take kids outside for instruction. So it might be good even in the early days here if kids have a sweatshirt or something. So if it's a little chilly, they can still get outside and get that mask break. And when teachers take them outside, they will be able to take their masks off. We're going to map out areas and 400 square feet each, I think, so that students can be physically distanced and sit out there and receive some instruction where it makes sense for the instruction to be delivered outside without their masks on. So we're gonna do everything we can to get them plenty of mask breaks. There'll be a few exceptions inside, and if we do, like for snack, for instance, if they eat snack inside, if it's raining outside or something, obviously we're not gonna make them sit outside and eat snack. So they'll just sit at their desk when they have that type of situation. So each student will have a desk and they'll be physically distanced as well, and they'll sit at their desk to eat snack. The cafeteria is the same way. Obviously they'll have their mask off to eat lunch, and they'll be physically distanced there as well. The supply list came up again. So we do not require you to send supplies for kindergarten. We'll supply them all, and each student will have a bag or container of their own supplies, so they're not sharing them right now. Somebody asked about the plan for the year. So that's a good question. If I don't have a plan for the year other than to try to provide safety and work through it day by day. Right now our district, and I think I sent out, I attached the plans last night, but we have a district return to school plan that our school board approved in early July, I think, maybe late July actually. Then we have a Belmont Elementary School return to school plan for families that's building specific. There's a lot of information in there for you about how we're operating in this building right now. It's a lengthy document, but if you look at the first, I would say page 2 through 10, I think, it kind of gives a high level overview of everything we have in place. And then there's an appendix after that. If you want more detail to read about some of the health and safety protocols and some of the academics, you can read through the appendix as well if you'd like to. Right now, our approved plan will take us through October 9th. So September 9th is the first day at school, official day for cohort A, and September 10th is the first day at school officially for cohort B. So that's a Wednesday and a Thursday. So essentially September 9th to October 9th. And then at the beginning of October, our leadership team will be sitting down to look at state data, Lakes region data, district data, and school data on illness, and see if what we think we can do going forward. So there's potential to have some shift in early October, probably after Columbus Day that would take effect. But in reality, we're going to have to be flexible all year. There's a potential that we could be, have to go out on full remote learning for the entire school. And if we need to do that, we'll flip and do that. We'll be ready. The idea is to provide both students and parents with some support in terms of Seesaw, which is the learning platform that we would use remotely, and any other help assistance you may need to make sure you can get up and running at home if we need to. There was a question about cohort C and the instruction, so I just touched on that briefly at the end of the day. But essentially, our general schedule. So let me walk you through week 1. Cohort A will be here on Wednesday, the 9th of September. Cohort B will be here on Thursday, the 10th of September. And then Friday, the 11th is going to be a remote learning day for everyone. So that's different than our norm, but that's only in week 1. So Friday, the 11th, remote learning for everyone. In general, our weeks, and so starting September 14th, we'll start our first normal week, remote learning for everybody on Monday. And then cohort A is in the building on Tuesday and Wednesday, and cohort B is in the building on Thursday and Friday. So the week of September 14th will be our first normal week. And again, I'll send this all out to you via email if it's not already in our return to school plan. So cohort C, on a remote learning day, the first thing that's going to happen on any remote learning day is at 9 o'clock, there'll be a class-wide morning meeting. So the teacher will be online and they'll send a link out to you, and all students will be able to get online at 9 o'clock on Monday morning or any remote learning day. Typically it's going to be Monday at 9 o'clock, and they'll do a class morning meeting. So that could involve a greeting so that kids get a chance to socialize across cohorts. It could involve fun activities. It could involve sharing. They may be doing something in the classroom with students that are in person, and they may send something similar home for cohort C to do. So they may allow the kids to share back and forth and kind of get excited about their work and so forth. So, but the teachers will lead you through that. From 10 to 12, cohort C will receive instruction on Mondays. So from 10 a.m. to 12 noon is the block of time for instruction for cohort C on Mondays or remote learning days. Now, that doesn't mean we expect kids to be online for 2 hours straight. That wouldn't work very well for 5-year-olds. So, but that's when you can expect instruction. The teachers will set that up. You know, it may be that at 10 o'clock they offer the literacy lesson, and at 11 o'clock they offer a math lesson or something. But they'll spread it out so there's some breaks and kids aren't online for that length of time. And certainly, you know, kindergarten obviously can't spend as much time on a screen as a 4th grader might be able to. So it'll be age appropriate. Beyond that, on Mondays, if as we get moving, if teachers determine that students need particular interventions, we do have Title I staff that could be reaching out to schedule time with your student. The teachers may reach out to schedule time with you. That could be Monday afternoon or during that 2:15 to 3:15 timeframe, Tuesday through Friday. So generally speaking, if your student is in cohort C, a remote learner, the teachers will be setting up appointments with you Tuesday through Friday, you know, a consistent time between 2:15 to 3:15. So that's probably 15 or 20 minutes to check in, because again, 5-year-olds can only handle so much time paying attention online at once, but there is plans to be able to check in with them every day. And they'll be providing work that is kind of parallels what they're doing in class for the remote learners. So they'll have work to do on those, you know, Tuesday through Friday when they're not online with their teacher. And then at the end of the day, if there's questions or things that they don't understand, there'll be the opportunity for them to check in and get some guidance in that regard. And certainly parents, as you know, with 5-year-old students, you're going to be jumping online with them potentially, or somebody, grandma, or grandpa, or an aunt and uncle, or whoever it is, can certainly jump on and help out with that. There was one more thing I was going to mention, but I forgot what it was. So let's see. I think I gave the overview of remote. And there is, if you read our district plan, it does say that remote learners will be working primarily independently if you're in cohort C. So we're doing the best we can to provide that instruction time on Monday and then provide check-ins in the afternoon, given that elementary students obviously need more help than a middle school or high school student might. I can't give you a specific time on how often the mass breaks will be, but Certainly the plan is to provide students with mask breaks as they need them. Kindergarten will get them more often than others. And obviously teachers are going to monitor their tolerance and adjust as needed. So I did mention, I think all teachers will be encouraged to be outside with students and instruct when they can. Recess will certainly be a lunch break as we work on, teaching kids how to maintain their distance and be effective running around at recess. But honestly, my number one priority and our number one priority is safety for us as we start off. So, let's hope we get through these first 4 weeks and everything's going great and we're able to ease the guidance and restrictions. But social groups, we do plan to do that again. So Mrs. Belanger would organize those for kindergarten as your school counselor, but our school psychologist may also participate if she needs some support because she'll have her hands full with other students as well who are here. Yes, Justin made a good point. With kids get tags in their backpacks, so to make sure they get on the right bus, or the tag will say their name and what bus they're on, or if they're a car rider. So we make sure that we get students to the right places. And I will say, even if we make a mistake, we always, if a kid got on the wrong bus or something, we always are in touch with the bus and able to find them. That doesn't happen much, but I just want to reassure you that we don't lose kids. In terms of what time you can line up in the car rider line for drop-off and pickup, drop-off starts at 8:35 when the bell rings, so you can get here a little before that, obviously, to line up. And pickup, like I said, the gate won't open until about 15 minutes before pickup, so I anticipate the gate will open at 2 p.m. for a 2:15 dismissal. The line can get rather long, but it moves pretty quickly, so I would say on an average day with everyone here, we get through the line in 15 minutes max. And I would say that I think we'll have an increased number of car riders in the situation we're in, but we're only going to have 45% of the kids here on any given day. So I would say we'll be within that time frame still. Lunch options, yep, a monthly calendar goes out with what the lunch item is for each day, and that's typically posted on the district website as well, I believe. But it goes home in paper here as well. And then it goes out via, we send weekly announcements. So that'll come from, I think, Mrs. Nelson, the secretary. You get a weekly announcement, and the lunch menu will be attached to a weekly announcement at the beginning of the month or the end of the previous month as well. The first day for cohort C. So in that first week, essentially 9/9 is the first day for cohort C, but the teachers will be reaching out in that first week just to set up those appointments and schedule your times for your meetings and stuff, from the 2:15 to 3:15. So they'll schedule a time where you can do that consistently. And then Friday will be the first big day for remote learners because Friday's a remote learning day. So, and I should say initially, and this could be, I think this will be not so intuitive for parents of students in cohort C, but when we come to school, typically, especially with kindergartners, we follow a responsive classroom program called the first 6 weeks. And in the first 6 weeks, that's around getting kids comfortable at school, looking out for their social emotional needs, but also a lot of teaching, modeling, and practicing of school routines. So there's a lot to learn for a new kindergartner in terms of classroom routines, recess routines, lunch routines, going to the bathroom, whatever it is. So and initially, you won't see as much in terms of academics, even if you're in cohort C, because the cohorts A and B aren't getting as much in the academic aspect as even if they're at school. So I'm glad I thought of that, because that's not something that typically you would expect. If you're expecting to see a lot of academic work right away, that's not likely. The goal is for teachers to mirror or parallel as best they can for cohort C what they're doing with cohorts A and B at school. So same standards, same learning standards. They'll be giving them activities to do, and like we said, providing instruction on Mondays and then coaching each afternoon. Is there a supply list for at home? The answer is no. I see Mrs. Terrio shaking her head. So have we provided materials? Are we sending materials home to students? Okay. So cohort C, there will be a pickup for Chromebooks on next Wednesday, the 2nd of September. So you can pick up Chromebooks between 7 a.m. and 10 a.m. at school on the 2nd of September. We start early at 7 a.m. So if some people need to get to work, we try to get you in here and on your way before work. But 7 to 10 a.m. you can pick up your Chromebooks. And what typically the teachers may have something at that point. They may not because it's so early. But we'll do when the teachers have established a group of learning materials that they want to send home for cohort C, we'll have another pickup. So that may be, a quick, in a couple weeks here as we get started. And then as we move forward, it might be monthly. A lot of the stuff will be delivered via Seesaw electronically. So good question about whether or not you're going to be using Seesaw for remote learning on Mondays and the days you're at home. And so Seesaw will be the platform for cohort C where stuff gets posted, assignments and work and so forth. Google Meet, just like this, is what we use to get in touch with students and to set up the appointments. So teachers communicate with students and families, just sending out links to a Google Meet. If you're late in the morning and the buses are clear, the bus circle's clear after 9 o'clock, you can just drive right up to the bus circle and just come up to the front door with your student, hit the buzzer, and we'll let the student in. And Mrs. Tuthill is the secretary that's typically at the window, so she'll just record their time of arrival in our system, and you'll be on your way. Typically, you would come in and sign them in, but in this current situation, like I said, no, we don't have any volunteers or visitors coming in the building, just students and staff. Homework. I don't know if anybody answered that, but I don't think there's a lot of homework in kindergarten. We typically try to use a play-based approach for kindergarten. There'll be some limitations to that given the current environment, and I'm hoping we get back to full in-person instruction so that the kids can get some of that play and socialization that they typically get in kindergarten. In terms of actual ideas for keeping kindergarten play-based indoors, I can give you a couple thoughts, Justin. We will have some of the typical centers set up the kids use. They just won't be using them in groups. So if a student uses a center, for instance, Legos, let's say, one student might use those, and then they won't be used by another student until they're disinfected. But so we're going to try to use some of the similar fun things that we use in kindergarten. Just we're going to change the way we use them. And I should also mention that toys and things like that should be left at home. They just cause problems. So that's one of our rules in the handbook, is to not send toys in with students. We have plenty of things for them to use here. And that a lot of the toys end up causing problems as a distraction or, being used at inappropriate times and so forth. So toys can stay at home. If you can check the backpacks and make sure they're at home, that's helpful. Yes, that's a good point, Mrs. Terrio. So we said no homework, but obviously students aren't going to be at school every day. So they will, cohort A will come home with work on Wednesday night that they can do on Thursday and Friday. Cohort B will come home with work on Friday night that they can do on Tuesday and Wednesday when they're out. Kindergarten students do get dismissed at the same time as other students. In this environment, it's likely that I may bring them to the cafeteria for dismissal so that they're not just coming down the hallway with everyone. So I don't want them to get overwhelmed. So I may do that for kindergarten and first grade. If I don't do it in the cafeteria, there'll be some setup for kindergarten students and first graders to get a head start and get to their location before other students are walking. out with them. But again, in the afternoon, we have staff in the hallways. Even in a typical situation, we would have staff in the hallways to help and monitor the hallways. Is there an opportunity for siblings to see each other during the day? If needed, we can make that happen, and Mrs. Belanger is good about that when it's needed. In general, we'll be trying to keep cohorts separated, but obviously siblings is a little bit of a different situation because you're at home together. So she'll do that as needed. It looks like I must have missed a question about screening at home, but I think I sent the screening questions out yesterday so that parents would have them for the screening that we did this morning. So we did academic screening this morning, and I think the question's about screening for symptoms of illness. So I did send those out, and I'll send them out again next week to everybody before kids. It'll probably be the week after, actually. So after Labor Day, I'll send them out just before we start school, so all parents have them. They are in the return to school plan. There's a link in there to the symptoms, but we're following CDC guidelines. The one thing that was left out of the original plan, oddly enough, somehow got deleted, was fever. But if you have a fever of 100 degrees or higher, that's a symptom. And then there's a list of symptoms as well to keep your student at home. And obviously, we ask that you please adhere to that now more than ever. Sometimes there's situations where parents, have the attitude, and I did too. If they have a little cold or something, they can tough it out and they'll get through the day. And so in this situation, we can't do that. So we just ask that you please monitor that and do the right thing for all people involved, because we're talking about everyone's safety. So I had the same discussion with staff. Obviously, there's a broad array of perspectives on how bad this pandemic is and what we should be doing and what we shouldn't be doing. And some people are very conservative, some people are very liberal. At school here, we have to consider everyone's safety. So we're going to be, on the conservative side, and we need you to be as well, even though that might not be your true belief. And if kids come to school sick, we'll have to call you and send them home. The nurses are online, like I said, every week with the doctors at the public health office, and they're given strict guidelines to follow, and they have to follow them to a T. So. Specialists. So if some of you have older siblings, when we went remote in the spring, we had all 5, or I think we had 7 specialists actually, including technology and posting for things to do each week for kids. So the specialists, again, I think I said this, if you're in cohort C, you'll have the same special as your assigned classroom does for that 4-week cycle. I do believe that the specialists are going to post some optional fun activities for kids to do. So if you are in a situation where you're looking for more for your student to do, or they have a particular interest in art or music or physical education, whatever it is, I think they do plan to post some optional fun activities for kids to do if you want to take advantage of that. A question about if a student becomes positive for COVID, what's the plan? Does the whole school quarantine or that cohort? So it's even more specific than that. And I will preface this by saying the state is producing a toolkit that includes an algorithm for nurses to follow. They have not provided that yet. So, but when the nurses get that, they'll be following that protocol. Essentially, when a student gets sick, they're going to be isolated here at school. And when I say that, I mean they're going to be separated from other kids. So we will have areas where they can go, where they're going to be safe and comfortable, but they're going to be away from other kids. You'll be called to come get them right away. And then the nurse protocol is to literally call the Department of Public Health at the state level, and that will initiate what's called contact tracing. And so any student that has been in close contact with that student will be involved in that contact tracing. Close contact is defined as being within 6 feet of a student for 10 minutes or more, and that's cumulative. So if you're next to a student for 2 minutes one time and 2 minutes another time, it's 10 minutes cumulative. What happens after that is up to the state. The state is literally going to gather information. The nurses are our point person here at Belmont Elementary School, she'll provide the contact tracing information they request, and then they're literally going to tell our nurse what to do in terms of who needs to quarantine and how broad we need to go. So that's a little bit, that's the high level answer, I guess. And when the nurses get the specific algorithm, if it's easily understood, I'm sure they'll share it. If it's confusing in terms of the way it's spelled out, we'll try to provide a simplified version of it. But it is going to be very difficult. It's going to be handled on a case-by-case basis. And there is a lot of information about health and safety protocols in that return to school plan, family plan that was sent out. So if you didn't get that, feel free to email me. Any questions you have, you can email me at any time. It's just bhill, so B for Ben, Hill, Hill, at sau80.org. You can also call the school. The school number is 267-6568. If you are keeping your student home with symptoms, you will call the office and call them out, just like you would on any other day. And then typically the secretary will transfer you to the nurse to leave symptoms. And so a lot of times that's in a voicemail if the nurse is busy, but just to leave symptoms. So it's important for the nurse to get those symptoms, as she will monitor. If we have a widespread group of children getting similar symptoms, that causes her to take some action to prevent further spread. So that's important that you leave the symptoms for the nurse. I think you can also email the nurse as well. Her name's Rochelle Ashey, so it's R Ashey. That's RASHEY at sau80.org. And generally, if your child's homesick, they won't be expected to participate in the learning for that day. But obviously teachers will catch them up when they get back. So there's a good question in here about winter weather. When we get to colder weather and if a student has a runny nose, what happens? So this is a good question for our nurse, but I will tell you what's laid out now is the list of symptoms talks about new or unexplained symptoms. So for instance, if I have allergies and I know I have allergies, then the pollen count is high one day, it's pretty likely that I'm going to have symptoms of allergies. So there's some guidance there in terms of knowing your children and what they typically have for health factors. So certainly that can be taken into account. And I expect the health protocols may change over time. So as the state changes health protocols, our nurse will constantly be keeping up to date on that and communicating that as well. If a student quarantines, there's a question about will they transition to remote learning. So if the student's going to be out for an extended amount of time, we probably can transition them to remote learning. I think it will be easy to provide them with access to that information via Seesaw. I think all students will have it, and I think there's a lot of flexibility in Seesaw, so I think that will be possible. Our teachers are also learning Seesaw, most of them, so it's a new platform. We used Class Dojo in the spring because we were forced to react to an unknown, and a lot of parents already understood Class Dojo, but it's not really a user-friendly app for instruction and the things we're trying to do. So so as you are learning Seesaw, the teachers are also learning Seesaw. They'll be a little bit ahead of you, obviously, because we've provided them with some professional development, and we will continue to provide them with support. But I think it's much more user-friendly and a little bit more intuitive in terms of what we're trying to do than Classroom Dojo would be. So, but certainly we will support that. Our technology integrator is Mr. Gingrich. I think he plans to put together some videos on how to use a Chromebook and stuff, because we typically teach that stuff in kindergarten. A lot of students don't even know how to use the little tracking device and mouse and things like that. So I think he plans to put together some videos, and we'll support that, as needed. I think, initially the teachers will likely put some little mini lessons out that aren't really academic in nature, but allow you to practice the different functions in Seesaw so the kids have a chance to practice those functions, and you will too. So we'll start simple, recognizing that it's new to everybody, and we're all kind of working together on the same team to do the best we can for students. So I think I got through the questions. If I missed anything in the chat, you're welcome to cut and paste it back into the chat. I'll pay attention here for a couple more minutes. And are we using iReady again this year? Kindergarten will not be using iReady. So that's a change for kindergarten, but the teachers will be sending information home, and it'll be in Seesaw in terms of the applications they're using, if they're using other applications for remote learning. There are some things that are a little bit simpler and, I guess, age appropriate for our younger kids. All right, I am going to stop the recording at this point, and like I said, I'll stay on for a couple minutes. If anybody has questions, you can continue to pop them in the chat and so forth. So thank you very much for joining, everyone. I appreciate you taking the time to do this, and not the way we like to do parent information night, but like I said, we sincerely welcome you if you're new to Belmont Elementary School, and look forward to working with everyone to provide the best learning experience, fun and engaging for students as we can. So have a great night.